The cartel world is both interesting and scary. Big names like El Chapo have made people curious about it. But the truth is, it's really brutal. Today we're going to talk about the most vicious narco-king execution ever recorded. It's going to be graphic, so be prepared. We're diving deep into the violent world of narco wars, focusing on this one shocking execution. Prepare yourself for a story that goes beyond violence into a realm of unimaginable brutality. Background of the narco world. The story of the narco world is like a dark, twisted tale beginning in the late 20th century. It's not just about deals in back alleys. It's a tale of empires built on fear and power. In the 1990s, cartels like the Gulf and Los Zetas began to reshape the landscape of organized crime. These weren't your typical street gangs. They were sophisticated, ruthless, and operated like militant units. Take Los Zetas, for instance, born in 1999 as the armed wing of the Gulf Cartel. They weren't just criminals, they were deserters from elite military units, bringing a level of brutality never seen before. The rise of these cartels marked a turning point. Violence escalated beyond street fights to militarized confrontations. By the early 2000s, Mexico was not just a battleground for turf wars. It was a war zone with tactics and weapons straight out of military manuals. The Gulf Cartel, under leaders like Ociel Cárdenas Guillén, became notorious for their ruthlessness. They weren't alone. Across Mexico, cartels were arming themselves, each more violent than the last. This new era of cartel warfare was marked by shocking events. In 2002, the Mexican military Arturo Guzmán de Chena, a founder of Los Zetas, in a dramatic shootout. This was a world where betrayals and assassinations weren't just common. They were expected. The rule was simple. The more brutal you were, the more power you acquired. In this world, men like El Chapo and El Mencho became legends, not for their mercy, but for their capacity to instill fear and command loyalty. This is the narco world, a place where violence is not just a tool, it's the law. The narco-king and his rise to power. In the brutal world of cartels, one name rose to infamy, echoing with dread and power: Commander Bebe. His journey from obscurity to notoriety is a tale drenched in blood and ambition. Starting out in the shadows, Bebe quickly grasped the brutal rules of survival in the cartel underworld. His early life, largely unknown, was overshadowed by his later deeds, painting a portrait of a man who embraced the darkness for power. Commander Bebe's climb to power was swift and merciless. By the early 2000s, his name became synonymous with ruthlessness. His strategy wasn't just about brute force, it was about cunning, making alliances when beneficial and striking fiercely when threatened. His reputation soared as he moved up the ranks, not just participating in the cartel's operations, but defining them. He became a pivotal figure, orchestrating moves that solidified his status in the hierarchy. His influence extended far beyond his immediate circle. Within the narco world, Commander Bebe wasn't just another leader, he was a figure of awe and terror. His commands were executed without question, his authority undisputed. His rule was not just about leading, it was about instilling fear, both within his cartel and among his rivals. In this cutthroat world, Commander Bebe stood as a king among outlaws, his name a byword for the sheer, unrelenting force of will needed to dominate in the unforgiving world of narcos, the war between rival cartels. In the underworld of cartels, rivalries are not just disputes. They are wars where blood paints the streets. The feud between Commander Bebe's faction and its rivals was a ticking time bomb. It wasn't just a clash for territory. It was a battle for supremacy, a fight to the bitter end. This wasn't about business. It was personal, and it was deadly. The conflict escalated rapidly in the early 2000s. Incidents that started as skirmishes quickly turned into full-blown battles. The streets weren't just crime scenes, they were war zones. Both sides were armed not just with guns, but with a deep-seated hatred for each other. Each attack was more brutal than the last, each act of violence more shocking. The cartels didn't just aim to defeat their enemies. They aimed to annihilate them. The tactics used were chilling. This wasn't just about shooting at rivals. They employed psychological warfare, using fear as a weapon. Bodies weren't just left in the streets. They were displayed as gruesome trophies, messages to the enemy. In 2010, the horror reached a new peak. The discovery of mass graves, the remains of dozens of victims, sent shockwaves of fear. It was a statement. No one was safe, not even the innocent. In this war, the rules of engagement were simple. There were no rules. Cartel sicarios became judges, juries, and executioners, meting out death sentences at will. The world watched in horror as the conflict spiraled out of control, leaving a trail of bloodshed and terror. This was more than a feud. It was a declaration of war, a struggle for power that consumed everything in its path. In this merciless war, Commander Bebe and his rivals weren't just fighting for control. They were writing a blood-soaked chapter in the history of cartel warfare. Capture and execution of the narco-king. The capture of a narco-king is similar to capturing a shadow. Elusive and nearly impossible. Yet, in 2013, the unthinkable happened. Commander Bebe, a figure who had seemed untouchable, was caught. It wasn't just a capture, it was a seismic shift in the cartel power dynamics. His rivals, the Gulf Cartel, organized a daring and strategic operation that resulted in his abduction. The details were murky, shrouded in the secrecy typical of the underworld, but the message was clear. No one was invincible. The execution of Commander Bebe was not just an act of vengeance. It was a spectacle designed for terror. The brutality was unthinkable. In a chilling video, Bebe was shown bound and helpless, his captors surrounding him like predators. The camera lingered on his expression of terror. What followed was a methodical, gruesome process. His tormentors didn't just aim to kill, they aimed to send a message. They used every means of torture imaginable, each act more horrific than the last. The video, grim and unflinching, captured every moment of this barbaric act. The sound of his muffled pleas contrasted with the cold, calculated silence of his captors, adding a layer of psychological horror. The final moments, gruesomely detailed, left a mark on all who viewed it, ensuring the message of terror was unmistakably conveyed. But this wasn't just a murder, it was a propaganda tool. The video, released by the Gulf Cartel, was a statement of power, a declaration of dominance. It was meant to instill fear, not just in rival cartels but in anyone who dared to challenge them. The impact was immediate and far-reaching. The video spread like wildfire, a gruesome testament to the brutal reality of cartel warfare. This execution wasn't just the end of Commander Bebe. It was a symbol of the merciless nature of the narco world. It showed that in this realm, power was fleeting and even kings could fall. The fallout was significant, with ripples felt across the entire cartel landscape. This event wasn't just a chapter in the story of the cartels. It was a turning point, a moment that redefined the rules of engagement in the bloody war for supremacy in the world of shadows and silence, aftermath and impact. However, in the cartel hierarchy, power vacuums don't remain unfilled for long. The brutal end of Bebe signaled not just a shift, but an upheaval. Rival factions saw an opportunity to rise, leading to a scramble for dominance. This power void sparked a series of retaliations and power plays, turning the already volatile cartel world even more unstable. Public and media reactions were a mix of horror and fascination. The video, with its graphic and disturbing content, became a viral sensation, drawing eyes from all corners of the globe. It wasn't just another news story, it was a grim window into a world many knew existed but had never seen so explicitly. News outlets and social media platforms grappled with the ethical dilemma of broadcasting the brutality, balancing the need to inform against the risk of glorifying violence. The public was left shocked and deeply unsettled by the raw display of cartel barbarity. In the long term, this event left a permanent mark on cartel operations. The brutal efficiency and publicity of the execution set a new standard in cartel warfare. It was no longer just about controlling territories or trafficking routes. It was about sending a message, loud and clear. This incident spurred an escalation in violence, with cartels becoming more brazen in their actions. The psychological impact was profound, instilling a deeper sense of fear and uncertainty. Commander Bebe's end was not just the conclusion of one man's reign. It was a catalyst that sparked a new era of cartel violence. The aftermath of this event reshaped not only the strategies and tactics of these criminal enterprises, but also the public's perception of the war on the legacy of violence. This act of extreme ruthlessness signaled to other cartels that the limits of violence were now pushed further. Such barbarity became a tool not just for retribution, but for instilling fear and asserting dominance. In the aftermath, society felt the tremors. Communities in cartel-dominated regions lived under a heightened shadow of fear. Law enforcement agencies already battling against complex networks of crime faced an upsurge in brutality, complicating their efforts. Politically, this episode forced a hard re-evaluation of strategies in the war, highlighting the deep-rooted issue of violence that transcends mere drug trafficking. This legacy of violence highlighted a grim reality. The cartel world's battles spill over, affecting innocent lives and societal stability. The story of Bebe shows the enduring impact of such brutality, reshaping perceptions and realities in the ongoing war against narcotics. Our journey into the dark world of cartels, resulting in the brutal execution of Commander Bebe, reveals a chilling truth about the nature of trade violence. The tale of Bebe serves as a brutal reminder of the lengths cartels will go to maintain control. But it also begs the question, in a world where such savagery exists, can there ever be a true victor in the war on drugs? Or are we all in some way casualties of this endless battle? Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. See you on the next one.